I knew you somewhere. You sounded right.
We are about to watch the commutation hearing of a man who in 1998 senselessly shot a bicyclist because they almost hit him. It was just a bizarre, senseless act. And now he's seeking a chance at commutation by the governor. And this is part of the series of the Governor's 56. There's a playlist below. I'll get into that more as we go through these proceedings, and I'll unpack it with his appeal at the end.
So Carl Ruffins, your DOC is 412788. You're seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in February 1999 to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction in the 1st Judicial District in Caddo Parish. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. All those things are correct.
All right, Mr. Freeman.
Okay, Mr. Ruffin, how old are you currently?
I am currently 46. I'll be 47 in October.
Okay, and how long have you served on this charge?
I served as of August the 9th of this year, 25 years.
Do you have your GED or high school diploma?
Yes, sir. I do have a GED.
Okay, did you obtain it while you was in prison or before you came?
I actually obtained my GED in 1996 from Ouachita, Arkansas. I was in Job Corps.
Okay, Mr. Ruffin, the victim in this case was Donald Reed. Did you know Donald before y'all had y'all altercation?
No, sir. I do not know Mr. Donald Reed before we had an altercation.
Okay, tell me what went on. Tell me exactly, because it's kind of confusing.
Yes,
all
sir.
drive, all turning around, coming back, him almost hitting the car with the bike. Tell me exactly what happened and tell me the truth. Okay, today's the day.
Yes, sir. On August the 8th of 1998, Montgomery Williams was the driver. Me and Jerome Atkins were passengers. I was the front seat passenger. Montgomery Williams was making a right turn. At the same time, simultaneously, Mr. Donald Reed was crossing the intersection on a bike. I do not know exactly if he was hit or not. But what I do know is it looked like he was possibly hit. He drops the bike, he looks angry. Then Montgomery Williams gets out the car. It looks like those two argue. He gets back in the car, we drive down the street. He turns around almost exactly to the spot he almost hit the guy. He ducks down in the seat. At that point, Mr. Donald Reed starts walking up to the passenger side of the car from the front view. And I did one of the most regretful things I could ever. I got out of the car. I said,
So at that time, you shot Mr. Reed, correct? So the argument wasn't between you two, I mean, but you did get out the car and you shot him. And you admit to that.
Yes, sir.
And quite frankly, there wasn't much reasoning behind the shooting on your part, correct? Were you on any drugs or alcohol at that time?
Yes, sir, I was. I was drinking at night. I was smoking weed. I was using cocaine.
How long had you used weed and cocaine? Since what age?
Weed, I've been using them since probably about the age of 15. Cocaine was something relatively new.
All right. Have you done any classes or received any treatment for your drugs?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what classes have you taken?
I've taken, I've taken AA. I've taken living to balance. 1 and 2. I've taken substance abuse. I do weekly community AA twice a week in the education building.
Okay, what have you these classes in AA?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you, sir.
What have you learned from these classes in your AA meetings?
I learned that I will always be an addict. I learned that I will always struggle with my addiction. I learned that first I had to realize that my life was unmanageable. And then I had to believe that there was a higher power. I had to turn it over to that higher power. And I've done those things. I also believe that I need community service. I need somebody to try to make it right.
All right. The judge and the DA and the sheriff are opposed, which is normal. The offender's family, Miss Eloise Lewis, she's opposed. That's his mother. And your family, James Nash, your brother, is unopposed. And said he will help you however he can when you get out. Did you have any work history prior to committing this offense? Were you working?
Not at the time. At the time I was not working. I do have a sir?
I say, go ahead. Have you ever worked?
Yes, sir, I have. I did a lot of range of jobs, mainly fast food services. I also did a few construction type of jobs. I worked as a painter. One of the last jobs I had, I was a certified asbestos worker.
Okay. What is going to be your sobriety plan when you get out? How are you going to stay sober? It's to be the first thing you do to try to make sure that you stay sober.
One of the first things I do to try to make sure that I stay sober, I would like to continue my sobriety meetings that I could have right here in prison. My brother Joseph, he's contacted a couple of places in which I will be able to attend. I also, because I do go to weekly AA meetings up here, I also talked to one of the guys, Carl, and he assisted me by providing 3 addresses within 9-mile radius to where my brother would be staying in Fort Nate, Texas.
You're low risk, minimum custody. You've had 47 disciplinary reports. The last one was in 2018. It was a lower court report. Your last major report was in 2016. Was that a sex offense?
Yes, sir, it actually was.
So what family member are you going to live with after you get out?
I will be living, sir.
What's your plans?
I'll be living with Mr. Joseph Nash, which is my youngest brother. He lives in Fort Nate, Texas. I'll be working there, doing maintenance work with his boss, Mr. Zach Zerud, if I'm correct, his last name is pronounced.
Yeah, you're gonna go to the parole project first?
Yes, sir. The parole project has said that they would take me on to help get me reacclimated into society.
Will y'all keep him until interstate compact is approved?
Yes, sir, we would.
Thank you. Okay, just give me I see you taking victim awareness. What did you learn in victim awareness?
Victim awareness taught me about role and responsibility. That no matter what a role somebody else may have played, regardless if it was the victim or it was somebody else inside, responsibility was mine in decision making, ultimately. Victim awareness also taught me about my own denials that I had. Because I at one time I honestly believed that somehow or another, that by denying things, that I can excuse myself from them. Victim awareness also speaks about having healthy boundaries. That's something that I lacked often in life, is having healthy boundaries, because I found myself sometimes leaning just because somebody asked me to do, overextending myself, if you might say. I actually find victim awareness a very profound teaching. It's what actually got me to see what my responsibility was for and who it was to. I now understand that every decision and action I make in life, I am the ultimate decision maker, regardless to what happens, regardless if I'm using drugs, regardless if I'm angry, regardless of how I may feel about what the other person may do. That in actuality, no life is worth taking.
So in other words, what would you tell the victim's family if you had a chance to speak with them?
I would tell the victim family that the night of August 8, 1998, what I did is wrong. They should never have to live a life without the sun in his life. They should never have to go a day. Their son, their sibling, their family member. I would
Right.
tell if I could trade places, I would. There's not a day that passes that I don't regret what I did. There's not a day that passes that I do not feel bad for what I did.
All right. You also took Thinking for a Change, Malachi Dad, CPR, Cage Your Rage, Living in Balance. You're a Point Lookout volunteer, so you're still doing community service at the prison.
Yes, sir.
You do attend NA and AA. You have some letters of recommendation for your backing you and wanting you to get out. Warden, what can you tell me about Mr. Ruffin? And also, why is he considered fair when it comes to his institutional record?
Why is he considered what, excuse me,
Fair.
fair?
Yeah,
Well, he has a total of 47 DB reports, with the last one being, the last Schedule B being the 21 that he talked about, and then his, low court, he had a Rule 4 in 2018 for, disobedience. He's a minimum B, he's assigned to Cypress 1 and he's in a plumbing school, and his tiger is low.
any other problems, any other recommendations?
No, sir.
That's all the questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Let's hear from the Parole Project.
Yes, good afternoon. Kerry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project. Forward today to grant him relief today.
Thank you. And before we move to Mr. Nash, I wanted just to make a point of clarification for the record. We mentioned earlier that the victim's mother was opposed, and that is reflected in the pre-parole investigation. But later, I believe she submitted, or there was an victim impact statement, which she says, she asked that the board consider whether incarceration has truly changed the offender. She wonders if he would go back to the same lifestyle and wind up killing again or being killed himself. She didn't give a specific opinion, stating that she's refusing the offender the opportunity at parole won't bring her son back to life. So she didn't offer support. She didn't really offer opposition either. Mr. Joseph Nash, could we hear from you, please?
My name is Joe Nash, and I'm Carl's youngest brother. You know, everyone here has had a bad season in their life, which is why we're here today, to see if there's any difference between who Carl was in '98, but also to acknowledge who Carl has grown to become today. You know, everything from Carl's past has come up. You know, everything that was less than perfect from his past has come up, but allow me to share a side of Carl, the loving side, the positive side, the influential side of Carl that, you know, some of you may not know. I remember being 7 years old and Carl would pick me up and put me on his shoulders, and he'd walk me to and from school almost every day. You know, that's the big brother that all of us look up to. You know, and when I consider Carl being incarcerated and I look at all the things that he's accomplished and everything that he's done, Carl is the epitome of someone who makes the best and the most out of his situation. And because of how much Carl has motivated us through his words of encouragement and his silent inspiration, is why we want to be able to give back to him. So he'll have a great place to stay. He'll have a great paying job at Liberty Healthcare, where he'll be the facility maintenance person there. I've been employed there for 8 years. Zach, he's part owner in the company. He'll also have transportation to and from any NAAA meeting that he would need. But as I close, I do believe that if Carl is granted release, that once he reenters society, that he will be a successful, productive, law-abiding citizen, not just because of who he's grown to become today, but because of the strong support system that he has back in him, and also a group of accountability partners. But ultimately, man, we love Carl, and we're here to support him.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. James Nash.
Yes, I'm James. I'm Carl's young brother as well. I really think my brother Joseph pretty much laid it out for the most part. It's hard for all of us. All of us are a little nervous. I mean, because of course, we know it's at stake today. But the biggest thing is just we've seen growth and maturity in Carl from the time where he was originally incarcerated to where he is now, and even in our own lives, we've seen that. It's also not as though he has, an extensive criminal background, first time felony offender. It's not as though he has this extensive violent background either. And then just lastly, I think I really want to touch on what Angola has been able to offer. I mean, throughout all the programs and the courses and certificates, I couldn't name them all, but I know he's been through a lot. What impresses me the most is the welding certification that he has. Being that we both used to weld, and it's just not, it's not an easy thing to do, even outside in society. So for him to be able to accomplish that has been really, really big. Trying to contain emotion, but at the same time, really, really hoping that the board is able to see how Angola has provided these foundational blocks that's really set them up for life outside of the walls of incarceration, and how he truly is been rehabilitated.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ruffins, is there anything you'd like to say to us before we turn it over to your attorney?
I'd like to read something if you don't mind. First, with all the earnest sincerity of my heart, I apologize to the Reed family, to my own family, to society, to this honorable board, to the governor whom I petitioned for clemency. The grief I caused to everyone, it was unnecessary. I am deeply remorseful. And again, I apologize to Miss Lewis, the Reed siblings, to Mr. Reed's children, to Mr. Bertel, to Mr. Cortez Jenkins, Miss Andrea Johnson, Mr. Michael Johnson, Mr. Montgomery Williams, Mr. Jerome Atkins, all others of whom I have affected. As much as I empathize, I would never truly understand the enormity of what each of you go through daily. However, I do realize this is not the worst, I do realize this is the worst decision I could ever make. Never will I be able to say enough apologies. I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong. I will forever owe a debt to society and redemption to myself. Truly, I regret I did not make better choices. My faulty thinking caused you unimaginable pain. The man I am now wishes I could take it all back. In closing, I am grateful to the Department of Correction for all the programs that they are available to offenders here at Angola. Classes like victim awareness, thinking for a chain cage array, living in balance, were instrumental in my cognitive restructuring. Piece by piece, these classes fostered my change in thinking. Thank you, honorable board members, for the opportunity to be heard, for allowing me to publicly apologize. And finally, I ask the board to grant mercy upon me by committing my life sentence to numbers and parole eligibility. Thank you.
Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Ms. Renata. This board looks a lot at programs that people have taken to better themselves throughout their incarceration. And I think this board also looks to the insight, the personal insight that people have on the impact that their crimes had, not just to the victims, but also to the community at large. And I think that Carl Ruffins really embodies the insight that he has on what his crime caused, what his actions caused in 1998 is profound. Every single time we've ever discussed what happened in 1998, what he did in 1998, he cannot talk about it without weeping. He's horrified by his own actions, and that insight that he has motivated him to become a completely different person, to take every available course, as well as the ones that were mentioned. Carl participated in multiple programs for the JCs, the Toastmasters, spiritual-based curriculums. He's got certifications in pesticide, welding, currently is in IT3 computer school, and currently is in plumbing school. And although he's a volunteer with Point Lookout, there's also things that he does that he doesn't get certificates for. If there are people that need to be pushed to cafeteria that are wheelchair bound, Carl volunteers to push guys that can't walk. He volunteers to fill sandbags whenever there's a hurricane. If there's anything that is ever needed, Carl is one of the first people to volunteer. And I think that he didn't just take Living in Balance 1 and 2 and get the certificate and, and go about his business. He continues, and he has continued to go to multiple, twice a week, to go to 12-step meetings, because he knows that was a big contributor to his incarceration, with his substance abuse. And he has a remarkable amount of family support. He has an out-of-state plan. If he were to ever be released, he would go through the parole project. He would then go to Texas. He's got wonderful family support. He's got a sobriety plan. He understands the 12 steps are ongoing. He understands that he needs support throughout the rest of his life, and he's committed to that. And his record really demonstrates that. For all of these reasons, he's not returning to the Caddo area. He's going to Baton Rouge. Then he would go to Texas. The amount of programs that he has completed and continues to participate in, his work history, his low risk of recidivism, and the growth that has occurred over the last 25 years. Carl was 21 years old when he came to prison. So we would ask, based on all of this, as well as his own genuine remorse that is demonstrated anytime you talk to Carl about what he did in 1998, we would ask this board to commute Carl's sentence to a term of years with the opportunity for release through parole or through good time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I think the board's prepared to vote. Mr. Freeman?
Yes, ma'am. The hardest thing we have, Carl, is to balance out things. With regards to your rehabilitation, I'm very confident in that. With regards to 25 years for a murder, that's very borderline. But the fact is, I do believe that you are truly sorry for what you have done. You served 25 years, you completed some good programs. You have terrific family support, as we see behind you, and you have the support of the Parole Project. And for those reasons, I am going to grant the computation today, commute the sentence to 50 years. And I strongly recommend that you, when you get to Texas, that you find a support group and continue on your rehabilitation, and always remember you are a drug addict, 100%. You're not to leave the Parole Project until Interstate Compact is completed in Texas.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Jackson?
Mr. Ruffin, I think you exhibited a high degree of achievement and rehabilitation. Don't know what else you could do that you have not already accomplished over the last 25 years. You have the support of the Parole Project family that's very able to support you and keep you accountable. So my vote, grant 50 years with just recommend commutation of 50 years.
Thank you, Mr. Rich.
Madam Chairman, my vote is the same for the same reasons.
Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My vote likewise is the same for the same reasons.
All right, Mr. Ruffins, I do agree. That's my vote as well. So on your behalf, sir, we'll make the recommendation to Governor Edwards that your sentence be commuted to 50 years.
So they made a recommendation to the governor to commute, and the governor did sign the commutation. It was part of his 56 inmates that he commuted before he left office from October through December. Now, what we are doing is covering every single one of these commutation hearings and then parole hearings. So we are going to now watch that parole hearing, which took place, let's see, a year and 2 months after. So this commutation hearing was 5/15/2023. He then had his parole hearing 7/17/2024, which we are about to watch. And Sir Richard has put together a spreadsheet mapping out every single one of these hearings. And our goal is to bring them all to you to keep track of all the ones that were paroled and maybe even eventually revoked. So if you want to keep track of these hearings, make sure to click on the playlist below. It's called The Purge, and you can see the hearings that are happening in that playlist, and also hit the notification bell because that's how you'll stay up to date. So again, we're about to watch that parole hearing. So, a few things that we'll touch on. I'll just go over the appeal so we have a little bit more context with the parole hearing. So again, this is what it was, and it's just a completely senseless crime, of course, which is just so. It's just, it's hard for many to understand. And then it goes to the remorse. Do you think the remorse is real? And it's interesting. It really is. It's like you're in a lose-lose when you're talking. It's like either you don't show enough emotion or you show too much emotion. And I get that. I get that I am a critic when you see no emotion, but then when you show so much, it makes you wonder if it's an act. Is he actually crying because he feels genuinely bad? I mean, it's possible you can tap into that emotions because that's when his life changed forever. So you could argue it's easy to tap into that emotion and cry. Or maybe it is totally authentic. I'll tell you, we have seen thousands of hearings and we don't see people break down like that very often. I mean, if at all. And, want us to know that being in Angola, you're probably not allowed to break down. That would be weakness. So even to just, maybe it's just all that pent up emotion that is then released at this hearing. Who knows? I don't know. Let's see if he does it the same thing in his parole hearing. But here's the facts of the case. On August 8, 1998, the defendant and his brother were passengers in a car driven by their friend as they drove down the street in Shreveport to the home of William's girlfriend. At about the same time, DJ Reed, the victim, was entering DuPont Street on his bicycle. Was nearly hit by the car in which the defendant was a passenger. A brief, non-physical argument ensued between Reed and Williams. Williams got back into his car. So, they almost hit him. He gets out of the car. They get into an argument. They get back in the car. They drive down the street, but then they decide to turn around. This time when the car passed by Reed walked up to the passenger side of the car, and at that point, the defendant opened the car door, stepped out, and began to fire his .357 Magnum revolver at the apparently unarmed Reed. Reed turned and began to run. Shortly thereafter, Reed fell to the ground after suffering gunshot wounds to the arm, into his chest, wounds in his back, and he died in surgery. And it's just like, how do you do that, right? And he talks about just, being hopped up on drugs and not thinking, and his ego, and the whole thing is of course, it's impossible for anyone to understand. They tried to, in the appeal, say it was heat and the passion, moment. It was it shouldn't be first-degree murder, but they, of course, affirmed it. And it's just one of those things. He has all this support, and he seems like a good guy, and it makes you say, hey, is it because he's just a young kid with a gun on hopped up on narcotics? But it comes down to what his mother said, that one of the most gracious things, which is leaving up to the parole board. It's pretty amazing to hear that, right? So let's go jump in and watch the parole hearing and take it from there.
Why do you think that you would be a good candidate to be released today, and why do you think we should grant you parole?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I spent 26 years incarcerated. And all my time incarcerated, it wasn't always easy. I came here and I was dysfunctional to a large degree. You can kind of see that through my jacket. It took time for me to actually learn what I did was wrong. It took time for me to accept it. It took time for me to grow. I realized through a lot of classes I've taken, a lot of deep introspection. Why would I? Why would I do was wrong?
Help you
What I
refocus.
call,
Why do you think you would be a good candidate to be released at this point?
I changed. I changed a great deal. I took on a lot of classes. I worked on me. I learned how to deal with my anger. I learned how to deal with myself, with other people, without having to resolve to anger. They brought me to violence. I learned how to deal with my past and let go. These are the main contributing reasons why I believe I'd be a good candidate. Yes, I have trades, but mainly I've changed emotionally.
All right. Want to continue or you good?
I'm good.
All right. Thank you. So I see you have an attorney, Ms. Jane Hogan. Go ahead and
Yes,
let
sir.
her next. Oh,
Good morning again, Mr. Barra, Ms. Stapleton, and Ms. Renatza. Thank you for letting me speak. Carl Ruffins is an excellent candidate for release. He's now served all of this time, and as he candidly stated, his initial incarceration was an adjustment period. But even since his last clemency hearing in May of last year, Mr. Ruffins has not slowed down on his quest for self-improvement, not just to improve himself and to learn skills such as plumbing. And he recently was OSHA certified. He completed plumbing trade 2, and that's in addition to his pesticide degree and to his degree in welding. Mr. Ruffins also goes out of his way to make the prison a better place for other people. He is a point lookout volunteer and has been for years. He, in connection with that organization, he provides dignified burials and funerals to other men who pass away at Angola. He is currently sort of a volunteer mentor with the reentry program, in line to be a facilitator. He co-facilitates classes such as Experiencing God, and he is complete. That's in addition to all the other classes that he's completed, such as Living in Balance and Anger Management, Victims Awareness, 100 Hours. He's also completed an IC3 computer certification, AA meetings, and previously worked as a tier walker where he directly counseled men who were undergoing mental health crises in the cell blocks. All of this really points to the person that Carl Ruffins is today, and that is a man who is extremely remorseful for his actions. I've been working with Carl for years, and he is never really able to speak about his crime that brought him to prison without becoming extremely emotional. He was emotional at his clemency hearing, and that shows a profound level of remorse and recognition for what brought him to prison. And he has addressed those issues throughout his incarceration. He has an excellent reentry plan. He has very strong family support. His interstate compact agreement to Texas has already been approved. He has the full support of the Parole Project, who will accept him into the program and continue to monitor him throughout his release if he is deemed released. And so for all of these reasons, we would ask this board grant Carl Ruffin's request for parole today. And if there is any questions at the end of the hearing, I'm happy to answer any questions or clear up any confusion at the end of the hearing as well, Mr. Barra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll have Mr. Kerry Myers from the Parole Project.
Again, good afternoon. Kerry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project. I don't want to be redundant to a lot of, to what's already been said. We believe in working through the process. To this point, we continue he's not just taking that for to improve himself. His contact is already approved. He ran today. He will come to us. Where he will take time to institutionalize. I guess that's now learn the world he's offline and providing the skills. We turn to determines that he has completed our program. He is easy to move to his permanent place in Texas. Where he has the school system. We would just ask this board to consider all the factors and grant us parole today.
Thank you. Next, we have James Nash, a brother who would like to speak.
Yes, thank you for allowing us to speak. And I think Mr. Myers and Carl and Ms. Hogan have already pretty much covered the majority of what I would like to say. So, I mean, there's just really one thing that I wanted to touch on myself. And that is, I think a lot of people, including my previous self, see the prison system as just a housing facility. And I mean, it is that. And I guess in its core role, that's the purpose it serves. But I'm coming to realize myself that this is also a tool that can be used to take those who may not have had that initial structure or maybe even resisted that initial structure, to take them, build them, mold them up in such a way that produces a law-abiding, productive citizen of a community, ready for reentry into society. And I know that's not a flawless system. It has its issues just like anything else, but it can and does work. The main thing I wanted to say is that Carl is really a walking testament as to how it can and it does work, and we're grateful for that. We're grateful to the state for that. We're grateful to Angola for that. And, just in conclusion, more than anything else, we really just hope that you as the board, you're able to see, as we see, how he truly has been rehabilitated and how he really is remorseful for what happened in '98. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Joseph Nash, another brother who's in support.
Yes, sir. My name is Joe Nash, and I'm Carl's youngest brother. There's two things that impressed me about Carl the most, and that's his commitment and his consistency. That's both in his work ethic, his self-development, and simply just making better decisions. From his last hearing till today, Carl is still showing his continual commitment to growth, and he's been consistent over a period of time. We all know that Carl has changed, but we also know that one thing that has helped Carl sustain that change is support. And as James was saying, especially the support that he's received while at Angola. It's one thing to have all of the certifications and the certificates available to Carl, but for him not only to participate, but actually apply the things that you guys have taught him shows a lot about who he really is. You know, so our commitment is not just to support Carl, but it's actually to help continue to build on the solid foundation that Angola has already provided. You know, and as Mr. Myers has mentioned, that if you guys were to vote favorably today, you know, he has support from the Parole project. The interstate compact's completed. Once he comes to Texas, he'll have a safe place to stay and a strong support from his family. But also he'll have support financially from a company that's been in business since 1977, starting him out right at $20 an hour. So regardless, however you guys may vote, we just want y'all to know that we're really, really proud of Carl and everything that he's done. But ultimately, however we can support Carl, we're there for him. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have in support on Zoom, Heidi Buckle, a partner who's not going to speak. We have Deloise Nash Davis, an aunt on Zoom who's not going to speak, but in support. We have Alice Bradford, a friend on Zoom who's in support, not going to speak. We have Dejan Bradford, a friend on Zoom in support, not speaking. We have Brenda Nash, mother, who's on Zoom in support and not speaking. We have Talia Goodlow, a friend who's on Zoom and in support, not speaking. We have Lorish Nash, the sister-in-law, who's on Zoom, at LSP, in support, not speaking. We have Mitt Matthews, a friend who's also at LSP and in support, but not speaking. And Carlicia Nash, who's also at LSP, in support and not speaking. You got a lot of people supporting you. So, but there is some opposition. We have opposition from law enforcement. The law enforcement people of Caddo Parish are opposed to you being released. Just want to let you know that.
Yes, sir.
The case has been assigned to me. I'm the lead guy on the case, and I need to, kind of outline and put some stuff into the record and ask you a couple of questions. And basically, the facts of the case are that Donald Reed was riding his bike when he almost hit the car that you were riding with. And an argument took place between the driver of the car and the victim. Then seems like y'all drove off and went a ways down the road and made a U-turn and came back. When the vehicle drove back up to the victim, you fired multiple shots, killing Mr. Reed. And the question about that is, why? Why do you think you need to kill Mr. Reed? Y'all had already got away from the situation. Why did y'all go back, and why did you think he was a threat that needed to be killed? I need to know that.
When I reflect back on that incident where I took Mr. Reed's life, there is nothing that me now, the person I am now, can see in that picture that justified any reason for me to shoot Mr. Reed. I look at myself and I try to go back in those shoes. And I know it sounds like it almost contrary to what I just said, but I look at myself as being a bit delusional. I exacerbated a situation, I blew up a situation out of proportion to what was actually there at the moment. He wasn't a threat. He did nothing to be a threat, but I still saw him as a threat somehow. I panicked. It was wrong the way I thought. And like I said, he did nothing wrong. I shouldn't have never let it, if my thinking even go that far to believe he was going to be a threat. There's nothing I could say to justify it. There's no way I can sit here and say anything other than I have no justification for it.
Were you on drugs at that time?
Yes, sir, I was using. I was drinking, I was smoking weed, but it's not a justification for what I did. I was using cocaine, but it still should have never got that far. I think I shouldn't have never got. I shouldn't have never been. I should have never had a gun. I shouldn't have never drank. I should have never smoked. The responsibility was mine either way the cut goes.
All right. Just also, I wanted to add to the record that the mother of the victim is leaving the decision up to us. She's not holding hard feelings, obviously, and she's leaving it up to us. And there's also numerous letters of support in your file. We're impressed with your inmate programming, and you have a low risk and also a good plan with the parole project. I don't have any more questions for you at this time. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. State.
No, I think you covered everything. I have no question.
All right, it's time for the board to vote. And since I'm first, I'm gonna vote to grant you parole today. And for the reasons stated above, I think you do show some remorse. I think you have made a good effort in prison. I think you do have a good support system. I think you have a good family supporting you. And I don't think you're gonna make these same mistakes again. I don't even think you're gonna get back on drugs or alcohol again. And I would recommend that you don't. Because you're gonna be on parole for the rest of your life probably, or at least close to it. And if you come back over here and they say he's been drinking or he's been acting stupid, all I can tell you is you can bring your family and you can bring the whole town. I'm gonna vote to revoke your parole.
And
So,
I agree with that. I would never.
all right, so no drinking, no alcohol, no drugs, no bad friends, changing all of that.
Yes, sir. That's a guarantee.
And you're moving to Texas.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Texas.
So for all of those reasons, I'm gonna vote to grant you parole.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For everything that Mr. Barra said, for all the same reasons, and I really do wish you well. And I wish the mother of the victim well, because, she plays a big part in all of our decisions. Well, not to say all of ours, certainly in mine. And she left it up to the board. So she's well, and she did
Pronouncing.
Well, Mr. Ruffins, I saw you in May of last year, and I voted for you then, and I stick by my decision. My vote today also is to grant you parole for all the reasons that's been stated. But to
All right.
Thank all.
1:01 p.m. and we are ending our hearings at Angola, and good luck to all of y'all, and hopefully we never see you again.
You won't.
And I certainly hope that we never see him again either. But if we do, it will go into that playlist of the purge. You have to think with 56 commutations, there's going to be a certain number that are paroled, and then a certain number, what percentage might it be, that do get revoked? We have covered lifers who have gotten out on parole and then revoked, and it's mind-blowing to see it, but we've seen it. One case we covered, he's out, he was given a life sentence, he gets commuted to the parole project. While he's out on parole, he just can't help it. He sees an Amazon package at his neighbor's door, and he can't help it. He goes and he takes the package, and he gets revoked for that, and he's facing life. It's interesting. I thought it was one of the more insane hearings that we covered, but it had very few views. Maybe I should do it again in a different way. But I'll put a link to that here. It'll pop up. And at the end, if you want to see it, we saw another hearing. Oh my gosh, Miss Jackson left a mic drop. The guy had gotten commuted. He was a juvenile lifer, and he was the first one to get commuted as a juvenile lifer in Louisiana. And they had all these people supporting him because it got media attention. He was given a home, people bought him a car, he had all, and he got hooked up back on drinking real quick, and he threatened the people's lives who were housing him, and he got rearrested, and he's sitting there at his revocation hearing, and Miss Jackson railed into him. She said, "I don't feel bad for you at all." She said, "All you could ruin it for everybody. Because of your actions, it could be that the public will not allow juvenile lifers again if he had like killed someone or something." So it was a mic drop. But if you want to see, more of these, it's interesting. The purge, it's a list of 56 that we're covering. Some of them are a little anticlimactic, some of them are a little uneventful, but Sir Richard and I felt that it was important to still catalog it. And that's why it has its own designated playlist. Then with regards to how he, was the emotions real? Was the crying authentic? It's hard to what do you, I don't know. It's like you're in a lose-lose. When people don't show emotion, I always call it out. And then if you show emotion, it's like, it makes it feel like it's fake. And I just don't know. But I think it's a good parole. I mean, he does have so much support. He does seem to have made the best of his situation. And we see enough inmates where they just don't. And it comes down to the mother really saying she's okay with it. So I know I am. And I hope we don't see him again. And with that, I'll let you go.
Yeah, that's a call.